Well, welcome. Normally, this is not the quietest group that comes on the show, but I think in today's political climate, this ought to be an interesting ride. So let's start with introductions, but sit back and enjoy the ride is the best I can say.
Ed Bertarelli, Milford Republican Town Committee.
Chris Kivior, Milford Republican Town Committee.
Chris Moore, member of the FinCom.
Bob Burns, Chairman of Hopedale Board of Health.
Ed, where should we start?
Well,
Hey, I wore my Ed uniform today.
I like that. That might be termed,
But I even got my little donkey.
I was just going to say,
that might be termed like exclusionary, and someone might be hurt by you wearing the American flag tie. I mean, in today's
Better watch out, Ed might burn it on
all the snowflakes
I'll
out
give
there.
them burn.
All the snowflakes out there.
I mean, I can really support, that pesky First Amendment, except when it comes down to making fun of my mother or making fun of my flag. It's just, I'm sorry, it's a personal thing, but too many people have spilt too much blood protecting this flag for somebody to burn it on me.
When the thing is, though, you could say about that when you don't teach the history of the country and you don't teach the great figures who founded the country, and when you disparage some of the figures who founded the countries with the terms racist and slave owner and male sexist and this and that and the other thing, it's like a lot of the colleges and universities today basically have courses that are churning out this animus toward America, and they're getting paid to do it a lot, sometimes on our dime if they're public schools. But the thing is, when you don't know your history, you're obliged to repeat it. I want to make a point is that, we go right into it because things have changed so fast in the country. I mean, we said this for how many months when Trump got the nomination and when Hillary and Bernie, things have changed so fast. But you could say today, well, how could someone be, in a black-clad anti-fascist demonstrator, and how could someone basically and be a Nazi? Okay, but when you don't teach the history of the country anymore, and when you don't teach the history of the world, when you teach how we fought in wars, when you don't, but Al, we can never assume what we know as a thing.
Doesn't the First Amendment protect your right to be stupid?
No, but my point is though that we have a public today, a large group in the public who don't have the depth or lack the idea to what some of these things really mean that they're doing.
What happened in Charlottesville, the worst thing is we lost lives. But to make me defend a skinhead to say they have the right, it's bile. It's just, but, as I think through it, the skinheads have come through our little center of the universe twice in the last 2 decades. And you always hope, because Milford has treated them like little stray cats, you don't feed them. They come through, they put their fecal matter, their crusader thingy, put fecal matter all over the town. We all ignore them. And like any stray little animal, they go away.
Well, but again, there's two sides to that. And there's, again, the idea of both extremes, the left and the right, okay, the communist and the fascist. We always forget about what communism did in Europe to millions of people, to the Russian people. I mean, we talk about the greatest mass murderer in history. Well, if you'd hear some on the press,
Uncle Joe was awful close.
that's the point. And the point
he
is,
was the greatest.
he
He
was
was
the
the
greatest.
greatest.
He
I was going to say,
murder.
we talk about the little
Yeah.
guy with the little mustache, but Uncle Joe wasn't too
But
far off.
The difference is Stalin killed 10 times more people than Hitler killed. However, Stalin killed his own people, and Hitler killed other people.
Yeah, but Hitler was killing his own people. I mean, Bob,
we're not.
But they weren't his
He didn't
was
associate.
He was killing Jewish people, and while he was part Jewish, that nobody knew about, he considered
But
himself German,
it's
and the
terrible.
Jewish people not.
6 million Jews he picked on. But I'll submit to you, and I'll get in trouble for saying it. When he ran out of Jews, the Catholics would have been. That's a disease.
yeah, but he was doing that alongside. No, wait a minute.
The gypsies,
No, wait,
the
homosexuals.
wait.
Exactly.
The only. Are we going to get in trouble for saying this? No. Hitler was an equal opportunity mass murderer.
Right.
Okay. Stalin seemed to go, and largely since there was no press coverage of, we talk about Al and Al from Heights kids, and we have we had a large Armenian population in the Heights years ago, and when we were living there were several people who actually survived the genocide in Armenia. And when you really read about it, Hitler learned from that because he knew why the Turks got away with that was they kept publicity away from it. So the press, the reality of the situation didn't do it. But no, I just go back to the whole thing is things are changing so fast and the issues or whatever. But we were going to talk about a local issue with the referendum coming up. I don't know when the show's going to be.
We can get back to talking about Charlottesville versus
and all the rest.
Boston.
Yeah.
But okay, we have no choice in reference to smoking marijuana. Even though Milford's the center of the universe, I mean, we know 28,000 people agree and 6 billion need educated. The state,
You're worrying me.
the state has decided it's okay to smoke marijuana. So that horse is out of the barn. Fundamental
And grow it
question.
as well.
And grow it.
But fundamental question, is there a benefit to having a pot store in Milford? And did they write the referendum correctly?
Well, okay, but before we get...
Oh, Bobby, yes means no.
Well, yes, but that's
that was-
the
We've
way-
had that. That's an
the way-
age-old question on
that's the way it
referendum
frequently
questions.
is.
That it really is. It is always made to confuse the people. I swear it is. Because every time there's a referendum question, it's the exact point. Yes means no and no means
Yeah,
yes.
but
And that's why you have so much confusion at the ballots. And that's
Yeah.
why recently they have made with the summaries there telling you exactly
Trying to
tell you exactly what your vote is.
plain
And I think that's imperative, that there's a small Cliff Note version that says if you vote yes, it means this. If you vote no, it means
Couldn't
this.
the referendum say, do you want to allow pot shops
No, it isn't.
in Milford
You know,
for
this is
recreational
legal.
use?
You know, with the
legally.
legalese.
No,
legally.
With the
it can't,
legalese, you can.
because it's written by a lawyer.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And unfortunately, most people won't look
Have
read
you
the
have you
Cliff
seen
Notes.
have you seen the state ballot questions? They're the same ilk, and some of them were a little more
More
important.
lawyers.
No, a little more important.
But
the
you know-
question is though, to
What
get
is the
to it.
referendum dealing with? Because when I read, you can't test marijuana in Milford.
What do you mean, test it?
You can't test it. According to this referendum, if I read it right,
Well, what does testing mean?
well, start thinking about marijuana, cannabinoid distillates. You're putting them into food, okay?
You mean
When you're growing the marijuana, certain places use malathion pesticides.
Sure.
Okay? Certain places don't watch the heavy metals.
But you're talking, you're talking someone out here. You think we're talking alien? The point is, this is in reference to the pot distillery that's here in town. What is this in reference to?
No, my understanding was the intent was to say, is there a benefit to having somebody sell recreational marijuana in Milford? That's what I thought this was about.
At a storefront, I'm presuming.
Well, yeah, but I mean, not on the
Not
street.
on the street.
Yeah.
Or out of your car.
The board of
But then
the-
when I read, you can't test it.
Well, again, but let's just get with the general thing. I think if it passed, the referendum passed, things can be done at the town meeting because it does have to go to town meeting again
Yep.
to pass. The question, well, let's get to the other thing, which we
Is
talked
there a
about.
benefit to having, and here's
Okay.
my fundamental question. Forget the moral, that's gone.
There is a benefit.
What's the
because
benefit?
You are allowed to put up to a 2% a local tax on the marijuana sales. I'm just saying, you asked a question, I'm giving
Yeah.
you the answer.
Yeah, you're right. In
Besides
cash terms.
ethically, there's a
Now,
financial
it was
benefit.
3.
Oh, was it 3?
I think it was 3, and they
I
had
thought
such
they
a
adjusted it to 2.
backlash.
Okay.
They
That's what I
adjusted it
thought.
up to 6.
But if you're going to refer to benefit and not put in quote, I guess moral has got quotes around it. That's sort of esoteric to talk about it.
What, moral storefront?
No, I asked about. You said about a moral question.
Well, no, I mean,
you used
every
the term
time
that was almost like
Well,
that
Every
it was-
time we talk about it, I hear, well, pot smoking is not good. Time out. That is not up for discussion.
Well,
no,
hold
no,
on,
no.
but you got to understand that there's another byproduct, whether you see that as positive or negative, with opening a pot store or several in a particular town, is you put all the street dealers out of business. But that's
No, I don't necessarily. With the taxes involved,
I was just
think
going to say,
you'd
how
be-
much this
Well,
stuff is. You're going to buy it a
well,
lot
I-
cheaper on the
but
street
let-
than you will in the store.
I'm just telling
Yeah,
you
but
what's
again,
happening in
guys-
California.
Is there a benefit to having a pot store in Milford?
I would say no.
I mean, we can get money.
We're talking about finances, but if you're going to say generally, we could talk about a lot of things that generate money. But as I think I said at the last show, it troubles me that we have this railroad track and this railroad track of overdoses, opiate overdoses. We now have fentanyl that's permeating.
But we're not selling opioids
No,
and fentanyl.
well, let me finish, please, okay? Okay? We have two tracks, and to think that one doesn't link to the other is silly. Amy Leone's talked about this at the town meeting. She's dealt with addiction, she's dealt with all sorts of people about the fact that you want to use the term, is it a gateway drug? Is marijuana a gateway drug? I'm not sure. But the only problem with it is that everything seems to be cut today with fentanyl, okay, which is a deadly poison. Yeah. Now, to me, the other question would be, so I'd be a no on that for a variety of reasons, one of which is quote, a moral reason, but it's also the idea that our first responders are the ones who deal with overdoses on a daily basis. Policemen and firemen, we could only figure out what it does to them psychologically. And secondly, I guess the question would be, if we can assume that most towns around Milford will vote to ban pot shops.
Yep.
And I think that might be a safe guess. And Milford votes to allow them. We have, again, the great word that the native Milfordians and newcomers and everyone is terrified of, Milford dumping ground.
Yep.
I totally agree with you, and unfortunately, you always say you should always worry about what your community does, and that's what we usually do. Could care less what Hopedale's trash pickup schedule is. It really doesn't affect me whatsoever. But unfortunately, in this particular situation, it really does. You do think about the communities around you for that point, and you see more and more communities around here bringing it up, and they're going that way. And to Ed's point, all of a sudden, when the big circle around your town all goes black, saying they're not going to do it, and you're the one white spotlight for marijuana retail, you do have where people would be coming here for that.
Bobby, hold on. How do you answer Ed's question? Because he brings up a great point.
What's that?
If you have a street dealer, usually their ethics and morals aren't the highest, and they lace marijuana.
Come on.
Wait a minute here.
Let's
We
not-
know.
Hold on.
Let's-
They
let's
lace
not-
it with
Let's
fentanyl.
not disparage the street dealer.
Okay,
Just
but they
go
lace
ahead
it with
and say your
fentanyl.
question.
To me, there's a higher odd that somebody,
That's murder.
hey, mister, you want to buy some pot?
But that's murder.
versus having a controlled store.
Well,
But again,
the
that's-
store, you can test for fentanyl.
Right.
Okay, the street
Yeah, but-
dealer, you can't.
but the point is-
Now, keep in mind.
So then that tells me I should have a store somewhere.
But I just
No.
want to make it clear that I'm not for
Yes.
the sale of marijuana and setting up stores for marijuana. I want to be clear. While I am playing devil's advocate here,
Sure.
I'm
But
still
Bobby,
not for setting up the
again,
stores.
I hate to say it, it's irrelevant. You can sell marijuana. The question is, do we want to allow
No.
it to be sold in Milford?
It comes to where it's the same thing. It's a prison, it's a power plant, it's a casino. Everyone loves them, but they don't love them in their town.
Yeah, but again.
Okay, that's really what it comes
we
down
have
to.
a power plant.
Yeah, but you
I
went off
understand,
your
but I'm
most
saying-
compelling argument, which is the dumping ground issue.
Yeah.
That we can't close our eyes to what's around us.
Yeah.
And we've seen this happen in our housing policy. We've seen it happen in a whole lot of issues. We've seen it happen in immigration, okay, where Milford seems to be, of all the towns around, singled out for a large number of undocumented / illegal, immigrants who are putting a great burden on our school and other systems. So, I mean, the Board of Health has said if
And you just brought up a point.
Yeah.
I mean, when I heard it could be 3%, I said 3% of what? $1 million? 30 grand, okay, let's say it's 50 or 100,000. Now, that's a ton of money, you know,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
we got a $3 million surplus.
Oh, there's
Right,
no
so
question.
this is not something I want to risk.
The numbers were a lot bigger with the casino, and we said no
and
to
we
that.
said still
so-
said no.
and you
but
know it.
what he just said scares me.
Yeah.
Because I like the idea of having some testing, some regulation. If it's Cavour, pot, or us, well, Chris is on the license.
Already setting it up, Al.
Yeah. But I mean, you're on the license. You're not going to do something stupid like sell fentanyl laced or pesticide laced because they'll come after you. You're liable. The guy on the street, and
But the thing is that this is what why the people in Milford and whatever, the experience in states where this has been legalized, it just isn't. It's silly to think that opening a store, a pot store, is going to change anything on the street. As a matter of fact, it's going to make it more the Wild West because, number one, what's the security in a pot store?
Well, see,
Okay, what's
that's
the
the
security?
biggest worry I have
Okay, but
is the
again-
money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not. Well,
When you say security, I worry because the feds
I worry
have not
about-
accepted it.
I
That's
worry
right. It's a cash business.
I worry about, first of all, I guess I'm a little
It has
old-fashioned
because
when we
no
reduce this to money.
banks will
That's
touch
that's a little.
Well,
what do
no,
you call
no,
it?
but
Yeah.
the money, when I read about what goes on in Colorado, they have millions of dollars, and the not-so-nice people know they have millions of dollars, cash, because they can't use Citibank credit cards or anything. So now they got to bring Brinks trucks in at all different hours. It's not making the money, because I'm telling you, if you said Milford could make 30, 40 grand, normally we'd be excited.
Yeah.
You put another hotel in. Yes.
It's an addition. It isn't. I guess I'm flummoxed by the money thing because what I was talking about when you do a pot store is not necessarily the money. I was talking about crime because number one, money's one issue, but if just like we know what opioids sell for on the quote black market or gray market
Sure.
or whatever. I mean, OxyContin.
A buck a mig,
could
$81
could
a
fetch-
tab.
yeah, amazing.
Really?
Okay, that's the
Yeah.
that's the new Bitcoin, I guess, of our era. But what bothers me also is just the crime involved, the robberies, whatever. And then the other factor is with the police is there's really no accurate test to test for driving while impaired
But again,
under drugs.
Ed, here's my
no,
problem.
but if we are the place where people are coming to get it, how do our police handle?
See,
these
I've heard the
situations?
opposite, saying, let's say we make you go 10 or 15 miles away. You may smoke there and drive home, and guess
caught
what?
down.
But
Like
No.
who hasn't? You know, I mean, everybody smokes and drives 100 miles. There are people that drive across country that smoke all the way across and all the way back.
I'm
I
too
think the
old.
prudent thing to do, well, I understand that. I am too. But the prudent thing to do would be to go to Colorado or somehow access the statistics in Colorado, find out if the crime rate has
Right.
increased. Find out because they found that there's been a dramatic increase of, oh yeah, pot overdoses that people are being brought into the
But
emergency
again, Bobby,
room.
that's
Pot-induced.
By the
that's
way-
data that would
Yeah.
make me
Pot-induced.
feel more
But-
comfortable.
But why?
Pot-induced
My question is
physical-
why with the quote elite mass media were these pot overdoses have? And it's a good point you brought up.
What's
Very-
a pot? What's a pot
Because
overdose?
it's technically.
Because what happens
Yeah.
is when you get too much THC in you, it can have physical effects
Yes.
on you, such as it can interfere with your heart rhythms, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's just like
may
getting
affect-
drunk.
No, more.
It's more physical than that. I mean, getting drunk,
Heart
I
issues.
suppose your equilibrium, but you can have other physical things come out of
Yeah.
it that are not known until
Let me
you get
ask
to
you a
the
question.
point where
And
If
if
there was
people
a-
hesitate,
but
if
there's
people
also nothing
hesitate to
license
say,
threatening.
But Yeo Pot Store, if it was 4 miles away versus Milford,
well,
right?
I think we're.
I don't know. I mean, I'm asking, and the reason the money comes up, when I ask what would be the benefit, having a pot store somewhere, I can see the safety end. That, you know, if Cavour pot or us, well, Cavor's going to make sure there's no fentanyl, no heavy metals, all the bad stuff, because you can get sued. Okay, so there's a safety issue. I like the fact we have testing in Milford. Okay, just for that.
Yeah, but again, Al, I see you picking pieces of the conversation. The question is, what's the bulk of the evidence? And to point out something Bob wants to say, and I'll bring it up, and it's not trivializing it, but they have found also that people who have dogs, where there's ingestion of it, and the
Dogs?
Or children or
yeah,
animals.
exactly. And the point is that people hesitate.
Accidental.
Like if you went to the hospital and you've had you know.
Dogs are smoking pot?
No, but they're eating
we're
your
trying
trash.
Hey, with those damn
yeah.
rogue roosters.
Okay.
Or your kid comes along and
No, but seriously, what do you
No,
mean?
I'm talking
people-
about, we're talking about
It's the
ingesting
brownies.
things, in other words, the things are around the house that are accidentally.
Oh, okay, so you're
Yeah.
leaving it around and kids
I mean,
can get
well,
it.
Eat it or
Well,
something.
and you're 100% right, but to that point, that's where I kind of draw the line, and I apologize. That's where I draw the line, because let me tell you, if I didn't put the pill back on the top of my Valium container, or I left a bottle of whiskey on the counter, anything like that, my kids could get into. So your point is very valid, and it is a valid point that the kids now seeing these cookies, gummy bears, all the stuff that's there's no question. But still,
But again,
that comes
is
back
that
to
any
being
different
a good
if I-
parent.
If I had a
It's
store
not really
next
a legal
door
thing to me.
versus in Milford, are they more likely
No,
to
we're-
leave
yeah.
leaves
Well,
around?
we're talking, but we'll get to the point what Bob talked about before, about the physical thing, about the overdoses. This is where, what amazes me about the way the media pick and choose information is, if something's hip, okay, we've already demonized smokers for how many decades?
Yeah, right.
Demonized them, okay? Now, have we heard about what tar and nicotine in a joint? Have we talked about that? No, because, again,
though
it's
it's
so
multiple.
frustrating because the media, and many of the reporters are of an age where, oh, well, hey, man, whatever, is, a
Yeah, but
question
Bob,
is,
hey man doesn't work. You can't smoke a joint in a public building because it's smoking.
I didn't
No,
say,
but
I
it
didn't
still
say that, I'm
introduces
talking about the
tar and
net effect on your health.
Well, also, let me to that point, I have never seen a doctor say, you know, have you stress? Do you have anxiety? Do you have glaucoma? You should have a Marlboro Light.
Right.
But there are medical things where you have a chronic back pain. They give you marijuana products. There are medical benefits
There's
to,
no point.
to
We're not-
marijuana.
we're not
there
talking
are no
about
medical
that.
benefits
But
to
I would like to see what
whiskey
Bobby brought
or,
up.
Oh.
I'd like to see a typical town in Colorado of 28,000 people that had a pot store put in.
Yep.
What changed?
Why are we
Well,
hearing that?
no, all you
Why
gotta-
the challenges, why?
Because the press
because
isn't
maybe,
covering it.
because maybe the news isn't good and the press
Right.
doesn't, the press is pretty biased
The
as to
local-
Yeah, but we
legalizing
got
marijuana.
selectmen that their job is to educate me.
But
Where are you gonna get the info?
the local
Okay.
Colorado press covers it,
Yeah.
Okay.
but it does not make it.
Yeah.
When it goes on AP,
I
it's
think we
not.
did
You ain't gonna see it on
Yeah.
New York Times.
We did it
No,
right.
you're
Enough.
not, and you're not
Yeah.
because anything that points negative towards something that the press is
Enshrines.
wants pushed, it shies away from that.
So talk to me about Charlie at the state level.
Okay, well, let's see, we'll be entering obviously the economy's doing pretty well in Massachusetts. I think Governor Baker's ratings are right up near the top as far as popularity in the state.
Why?
He's a competent, quiet manager. He's fiscally moderate to conservative. On social issues, he tends to be more liberal, which is a good fit with the state. It may not be with some Republicans or extreme Democrats, but it's sort of a good fit. And it gives the whole thing of, since I've been doing this, we've had a whole series of Republican governors, and actually probably the most least effective governor we had was Deval Patrick in getting along with the legislature, because
Careful,
the
he's gonna be your next
because
president.
the legislative leaders did not, and if you ask the legislative leaders, and you ask a couple of our representatives and former representatives, the Deval Patrick administration didn't reach out to the Democrats in the legislature, and they didn't reach out to the state Senate president or the Speaker of the House. So there seems to be a pretty good arrangement.
But you know, the critics of Baker and Polito is, dang it, they ran on principles and they're delivering to their campaign promises.
Gee, amazing.
Absolutely.
How can they do
I
that?
mean, when you think of a governor that has, what, 75, 76% approval, a Republican governor?
With 12
in
Republicans in the
Massachusetts?
state?
Yeah, well,
That's
And it also
pretty
helps what you
impressive.
followed. That is, to me, that's huge. Not that they're doing a great job, because they are doing a great job. And I truly believe that Baker and Polito is what a duo that we have in the State House. We're lucky to have them. But they're also propped up a lot by Cadillac Deval in the years that we had to, endure under him, and the bad things that happened in this state under his watch that they're now clamping down on. And people are realizing, like, wow, when you pull back that blanket and you see what was going on, which is what they're doing, people like that, and that's why they're getting the approval numbers that they're getting, because it shows with the job that they're doing.
And doing it with basically the hostility of the major newspaper in the state. which never really covered Deval Patrick's foibles.
But you know, you look and you say, Governor Baker isn't necessarily speaking dogma, because Planned Parenthood was not an issue that went well with conservatives. Then when he said he's going to fund it, but yet he thought he should.
Yeah, but conservatism, there's fiscal conservatives, there's social conservatives, there's fiscal liberals and social liberals. There's like all sorts of gamut. I find a lot of this construct the media sets up is designed to weaken the party in a sense, because it'll talk about, you know, it'll talk about,
balkanizes everybody by their.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I may be conservative in every way, with the exception of I'm pro marijuana. So now I'm a moderate. I'm a moderate Republican instead of a conservative
yeah.
Republican.
Didn't that start
When
with-
it's
for one
really
issue, yeah.
I mean,
ridiculous,
go back to
because
Bill Weld.
everybody's like
He was
that.
a physical conservative that was socially aware.
Then there's also more and more libertarians today. It's something that we lose track of, and a lot of it's people who are not in the political process. But there's, and I don't mean as a member of the Libertarian Party, but just the idea of, you know, keep government out of our lives, as we've seen it screw up, particularly the federal government. And I think part of that fuels some of the Donald Trump's strength, and also just you know, in states where the federal government has a real sway, owns a lot of the
Ed,
land or whatever.
If you look at a Republican in a square state, I submit that's a very different animal.
Well, so's a Democrat.
Well, but
Yeah.
you
So-
go out to California,
Oh, well, okay.
okay, and you say, here's a,
There aren't any Republicans.
Oh wait,
Well,
you're
yeah.
talking coastal states or square states?
well, no, but a Republican
you're
in a
talking
square
coastal
state
states,
is
they're
not the
all
same
different.
in my mind. When you look at a liberal Republican in Massachusetts or a middle Republican, I have a hard time sometimes figuring out what's the difference between that and a conservative Democrat.
There isn't.
Well, what's the difference between basically a Southern Democrat? Well, there are very few Southern Democrats left, and then a Massachusetts Republican. So,
But you know, to me,
But a Democrat
Both
in Utah
sides
is a
scare me.
Republican in Massachusetts.
but I do see
he's crazy. That's what he is.
the
Yeah.
skinheads being, or people trying to tie this ultra-right group to conservatives.
Yeah, the alt-left tries to tie the alt-left.
Well, the
alt-right
media,
to conservatives.
again, we could go through the media. We've already talked about their bias toward.
But Ed,
they're
you're not the most liberal person.
no, but
How do you feel about the skinheads?
okay, but my question is this: is we talk, but we're not even aware of it unless you read papers that are not the New York Times or whatever, maybe foreign papers or the Christian Science Monitor. We're not aware of how our news is edited for us. Okay,
But answer a fundamental
The
question.
question is, it's how I would feel. The funny thing is, what's the other group called? The Antifa.
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 Yeah.
They're called-
Antifa.
It's for anti-fascists.
Okay, they are
Which they're nothing
just
but
like
fascists.
it's similar to Hitler battling Stalin. They were enemies, but their methods were basically the same. This is the same way here. The thing is, but Antifa, again, the New York Times did a story that was sort of like a social work piece on them. They felt they had to do this because of the alt-right. But wait, Antifa predates the skinheads.
Understood.
Well-
But an answer like you just gave is what gives, to me, the far left, ammunition.
No, not at all.
Chris, what do you think of the skinheads?
Well, obviously, it's a hideous group, right?
I'm not saying obviously. I'm asking you point blank.
Hideous group. Absolutely.
Chris?
Not a fan.
Bob?
You know what? The skinheads have every right to have an opinion.
I'm not saying they have a right
even
to
though
be
it's-
stupid. What do you personally think of what they stand for?
Never would join the organization.
Horrible.
Never would
To
want
me,
to be
that's
nailed.
a very
But you know
simple-
what? I feel the same way about Antifa.
Now I want to go the other way.
I don't want to
Is
be
there
near
any
'em.
difference between, and I don't understand
sides of a
how
coin.
you can have an anti-fascist group trying to suppress, even if it's stupid opinion, somebody's opinion. To me, that's not being anti-fascist. You're being a different color of fascist.
What does that tell you about the anti-fascists? You know what? I watched an interview today. I watched an interview of young people in the village in New York City, and they were asked about income equality. And the question was, what do you feel, do you feel income equality is an important issue? And universally, every one of them, there were couples, there were two men, there was a man and a woman, there was single man, single woman, old, young. They interviewed across the board. They said, absolutely, income equality is definitely an issue. So then the second question was put to them. So do you think that you would like income equality like they have in Venezuela, and you would be willing to put up with the outcomes that they have in Venezuela, that you wait in line all day for food to ensure income equality? 100% of them agreed, yes, we would.
Well, that's Greenwich Village.
There's people
Yeah, well, exactly.
that are uninformed. Antifa, when you say you're anti-fascist, and then you act like a fascist, you're
Yeah.
someone who
You're
is
the same.
uninformed.
That's my point,
But you're the,
Bobby.
but you're the same thing.
I abhor everything
Yeah, but-
I've ever read about these skinheads and the white
But Al,
supremacy.
what is-
But they're
But Al,
Americans.
why
They
should-
have the right to have that opinion.
But Al, the thing is that there's the old thing, both sides of the coin.
Right.
It's the same coin.
It's the
that's what I-
extremes.
Yeah.
No, but it isn't. There's the extremes of meth. And that's what I said to you about what I said is that the question is, they both come from dysfunctional, and I'm not using a mental illness excuse, they interpret history in a certain way. The Antifa people had threatened to bring acid, to the demonstration here and spray it on people, okay? Because do you know the group that, you remember when we had in Seattle, they destroyed the city and we had the International Monetary Fund
Yes.
meetings? That's Antifa, okay? The police chief in Seattle basically
Yeah,
gave
but-
them free reign of the city and they
G7
destroyed
But
it.
Ed,
Summit.
I would feel we should come down as hard on them as if a skinhead came with a club or acid.
Absolutely.
Antifa, as it's defined in the last week, right? Because I think
Yeah.
it pops up every decade or whatever in terms of national news. To me, it's a culmination of probably the last 6, 7, 8 years of left groups. So the 99% group, they were against the 1%, Black Lives Matter. Now they're being coined under Antifa. So it's kind of a mixture, a stew of, I think, all of these groups coming
Yeah.
together for one.
Yeah.
But
And
you
it
know,
is
again,
recoined a
whether
different
you
name
agree,
every
Chris, with
few
Black
years.
Lives Matter, whether you agree with any of these groups, you have to agree if they're Americans, they have the right to a peaceful demonstration
But what happens when
and voting.
What happens when peaceful demonstrators are attacked? And this is
Wait a
what
minute,
Antifa
wait a minute,
has
that
done.
becomes criminal.
Yeah.
Now,
See,
wait.
that's my,
That's where the
hold
problem-
on though. That to me, if you want to go out there and say, you know, I worship the cat, you know, the cat is God. Okay, you've got the right, as long as you don't take that banner and hit me.
But what happens
Yeah.
when you show up for the demonstration with weapons?
Well, Bob,
Okay? Now, apparently,
Well, but Bob-
Come on.
according to witnesses, okay, the Black Lives Matter people and the Antifa people got off the same 5 buses.
In Boston?
In,
Wait a minute.
in Boston,
If you show
and
up-
in New York.
wait a minute. If you show up to downtown Milford, the sandwich shop, with weapons to do harm, to me, you're a criminal.
What is the
I don't care what group
what is
you're
the
in.
major difference between Charlottesville? There is one glaring difference between Charlottesville and Boston. The glaring difference is this: in Boston, they kept the 2 groups
Apart.
way apart, way apart. So what happens? Antifa now attacks the police department.
Yep.
They attack the police officers. Hold on.
No buts.
Hold on.
They did.
In
But
Char-
that's
hold
not a
on.
demonstration.
Hold on.
What-
In Charlottesville.
Did you see it covered?
In
It wasn't covered.
Charlottesville, okay, they were allowed
Yeah.
to go face to face,
Crazy.
and the police were told to stand down. You have a Democrat governor, and you have a Democrat mayor, and the police now are coming out and saying, we were told to stand down because this was a setup for the violence so that they could have.
But again, I'm sorry. I will support Antifa's right to
Wait.
wait a minute, to
But basic-
protest.
basic-
but
as
Al-
long as they don't interfere with everybody else.
Al, we're sitting here, armchair scholars. The police have to deal with this on a daily basis. The police in Boston, who was an older policeman given the finger by the Antifa demonstrators and screaming and yelling at them, they have to maintain their cool, but it's a classic thing all through.
But don't they have to do that if the skinheads give them a finger?
Wait a minute.
Absolutely, but they didn't.
Wait. We're talking. Let me just finish. This is basic police procedure. Charlotte didn't follow it. Charlottesville, or was it Charlottesville?
Charlottesville.
They were
didn't
told
follow
not
it.
to
You
follow.
keep. It's like when you're at a Democrat, Republican convention or Libertarian convention. If there are demonstrators, they're kept in a certain designated area, and if you don't agree to stay in there, it's hasta luego. You know, you're
But again,
welcome.
at the Republican National Committee gathering, at the Democratic National Committee gathering,
You have
I have
protesters.
no problem with
Well, that's obvious,
you
though.
standing
Well,
out
that's
there in
obvious.
front. Now, if you show up with a club and you start whacking on the police or the Democrats or the Republicans, to me, you're no longer
But think of this,
covered.
Al.
Now you're a criminal.
Al, think of this. There
That's
was
right.
there was a guy, an Antifa guy, yelling at the police who were faced this way, and the free speech group was in the bandstand, you know, heavily outnumbered. And the guy was yelling at him and going, "You're this, you're that. You should let us get at them." Now, cops are not
Inhuman.
and the point is, I guess if I were the cop, I would say, by the way, if the roles were reversed and you were in there and they were over here, I'd be doing the same thing. This is my job.
But that
That's
to
what
me
they
is
try to do
proper
is
policing.
provoke.
And by the way-
they are enforcing the law. You
And it-
want to have a demonstration, I don't care what you're demonstrating, you know, God is green, or
Well,
whatever
okay,
you
yeah,
want,
but-
that's cool,
Let
it's
me
your
ask-
right.
Yeah, but
Let me ask Ed to do this, something he explained earlier today. The people from Antifa that they arrested in Boston, how did they characterize them
Okay.
in the newspaper?
The Boston Globe, the Boston Herald, and every major news station did not categorize them as being from Antifa. They were protesters, which could mean anything. Now, we can bet your blippies here that if just one of them had been a quote alt-right free speech person, we would have had the name, his home address, where he lived, and where he used to work before he was fired.
Yep.
So what gets me is,
And his
and I
face
say
would
this
have
for the
been plastered
15th
on the
time
tape.
tonight, is this censorship of the media to make things, and even Marty Walsh, shame on him, because what happened was they kept the Antifa people over here, and then it was a hot day, nasty day, obviously. They had the horses, whatever, and then obviously they were probably in there, were tired and frustrated, but then they started to throw bottles with urine and water at the police, and again, that wasn't covered in a way.
But again,
Stones?
to me, okay, you stop being, whether you're Antifa, pro-Tifa,
Well, no,
NIFA,
but Al,
the minute you start.
you're completely. This is what we're talking about in the whole thing of media self-censorship about the facts. When we don't know who did this, people can assume these protesters. 99% of the people in Massachusetts might assume, oh, there was those right-wing loonies. Now, it's bad either way, but why do they not report this stuff? It's frustrating.
It's just continued media
bias.
and that's just just one example.
Yeah.
It's just repeated, and we talk about it every time we come together. You just are unable to get accurate news nowadays.
No.
It's very, very hard.
But isn't
you have
there-
to search for news.
Wait a minute, CNN, bad. Fox News,
No,
good.
it's-
Or Fox
no,
News, bad,
Excuse me.
CNN,
Excuse
good.
me. There's one Fox. There's 87 CNNs.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But what do you listen to?
Well, very little, as a matter of fact.
Okay, but I mean, candidly, the 87,
Yeah.
I'm probably, if somebody is censoring my news, I'm probably not going to listen to them. I'm
No,
gonna
but you
pick-
don't know they're censoring your news because before we said this now about the Antifa, we can't assume that people understand that it isn't censoring, it's called editing. I used to be an editor. It means you pick and choose, you adapt the headlines, you do whatever. Editing can be done in a variety of different ways.
Wait a minute, Ed. They nicely threw urine at the police officer.
They didn't even.
Or
you
they
just don't-
gen-
you don't mention it at all.
They didn't even mention it. They didn't even mention it. Go read. I'm surprised you didn't, because usually you go into this stuff and dive into it. But it's
They didn't even
It's a
mention
frustrating-
Because you
what
could
they
argue
did.
it. If they said they nicely threw urine, then you can argue. Oh
Yeah.
my God, are they crazy?
Yeah.
They really said that? If
Yeah.
they don't say it at all,
Yeah.
Unless you're paying
then it
attention,
didn't
you don't
happen.
argue.
It'd be the similar way if a teacher got up in a classroom, never mind the university, because you wouldn't make it out of the campus alive. But if you got up, you wouldn't. If you got up and said, well, I think this climate change stuff's, we really got to look at this and let's treat it with a very skeptical eye. Gone. The fact is that there's certain sacred tenets today that the media and their liberal friends enshrine, and they're just in there.
But don't you think a place like Berkeley got a black eye from the country?
No.
No,
No.
Really?
I don't think they
I
cared.
think they got a thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs
That's
up.
what
Yeah,
they
yeah,
got.
yeah.
But wait a minute.
That's what they got.
50% of this country
My
voted
Indianapolis,
for Trump.
thumbs up.
Or
Don't
close
let
to
'em
But
speak.
by the way, Berkeley's in a public college and university by taxpayer funds that's basically in a state that is now basically for one party state. Okay, you have delegations in there today, and you have you have polarization in each part, but the Democratic Party is unrecognizable from the party of JFK, and the Republican Party is unrecognizable from, say, Eisenhower, okay, or Reagan maybe. So you really got a whole gamut of issues.
But you know, I'm reading this, and I'm seeing where Berkeley, free speech, as long as it's not conservative.
It's selective.
They try and
Exactly.
chase a
You
conservative
would
speaker.
probably be seriously injured there, especially by the professional demonstrators, because
Oh, yeah.
you can see what they do.
But again, I draw a very distinct line. You have the right to demonstrate.
But they don't feel you do.
But the minute you step over that line and you bring clubs or do something, you
They
gently
pick up the barriers and
anoint the
throw 'em
police
through
with urine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're not a demonstrator. You're a
Then
goddamn
become
criminal.
a reporter for
absolutely.
the New York Times or become a reporter for the Boston Globe.
Yeah.
You know, why don't you write an editorial and say something
You'd
about
you'd never even be hired.
It'd never even get in the newspaper.
And to kind of expand that as well from just the protests, it's kind of it's the groupthink now that, a few examples, we'll keep it local, but changing the name of Yawkey Way, Faneuil Hall,
Insanity.
So Washington goes away?
That's right.
I mean,
guess.
at the end of the
That's
day,
right.
You-
And
you could have the
eventually, what do you
argument,
think
we have-
goes away?
we have
the
one-
Constitution.
Well,
You-
no,
you-
but Bobby,
you understand
if
that
you
this
really
is-
say that
this is where
slave
we're
owners, we should erase them from history.
The two founders of the Democratic Party are Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, but they're both slave owners. You got to get rid of them.
Well, okay. Who was the Abraham Lincoln? Well, the rip was beat in Rip-On Society was in when the Republican
See,
Party was
I don't
founded.
understand
There's-
Yawkey Way.
There's one. Let me just give you there's one monument to the Confederacy in Massachusetts. It's in an island in Boston Harbor. I think it's
Yeah, right.
Okay, and here's what
And
the
they're
thought
thinking of
police
moving.
did in Massachusetts. Here's what the monument is. to-
Confederacy in
No,
Massachusetts.
wait. Let me just go through it. There was a prison in the harbor that housed Confederate prisoners, just like the South had prison camps or whatever. 13 people died in the prison, and there's a monument outside to their names. Okay, that's the only thing we have here. That is now. Go look at it. It's covered in wooden planks so no one can see it. The National Park Service and the powers that be in Massachusetts feel that to memorialize the dead Confederate soldiers who were prisoners of war, Union prisoners, is somehow in bad taste.
It's racist.
But
Well, but
No,
do
but
we
you
want to
under-
forget?
I asked you.
You think about
That's the facts.
the
That's what's
horrors
there.
of slavery.
They want to
Do,
erase
we,
it.
let's get-
want,
let-
do
let-
we ever want to forget what we put people through?
Al,
Yes.
Al, the facts.
Yes.
Why?
They want to erase it.
You
They
can't
want to
erase it.
They want to say that they want to erase history and rewrite it so that everybody that they want to eliminate is now racist.
You can't be
Of course
But Al,
they
but
can.
Al,
They've
but Al-
already started.
But Al, when you've stopped teaching history and you teach propaganda in the colleges and universities, where you have resegregation of dormitories, where you have safe spaces where people can meet because somehow the country is against them. Go back and look at a little history here. When the Constitution was being written, okay, there was a discussion as to how we handle the slave population to mete out government, to mete out the numbers of members of the House of Representatives. Okay? Now, here's an interesting fact. The North The northern non-slavery states wanted them not counted as human beings. 0. The compromise came up that the slaves were counted as 3/5 of a person. And you know what? What happened was the South got its way because, of course, the slave population, didn't have any rights. But for congressional things, it boosted the Southern population.
That would be like saying,
Well, it did.
we're
That
going
was
to
a
go
fact.
back to not giving women rights, and we're
Well,
going to lose
that's the example I was
50%
gonna
of our
use.
talent pool.
So what about all our founding fathers who thought women were completely incompetent and weren't even allowed to vote or anything?
I don't think they thought that.
But my
we're
point
saying
is,
that.
so you're going to use that as an example. So now should we say, because we've
That's
discovered
next.
that was silly, that we should eliminate all of them?
Yes. That's next.
It just, I don't understand. Are we going to
No,
take
it's
a
the men that's
jackhammer
the-
to Mount Rushmore? That's what I'm wondering. Like,
That's
when
next.
is that going to happen?
I think that was proposed, actually.
I mean,
That was-
seriously.
Yes. To
They
get rid
wanted-
of Mount.
When are we going to take a
Yeah,
jackhammer
wanted
to
get
Mount
rid of
Rushmore?
Yeah. And the
When are
same
we going to
covered, that's
steamroll the
what-
Washington Monument?
Do you know,
I
in,
don't
do you know in
know.
1840? In 1840, there were 10 million slaves owned in what at that time were the United States of America or the states of America, and all of them owned by Democrats.
Yeah, but Bobby,
Well-
why would I ever want to forget what we did? Why wouldn't I
we-
want
well,
to
wait,
learn
wait.
from that?
That is the
No,
whole
they-
point
they
of
want-
history,
they
is to
want you
learn
to
it so you
think-
don't repeat it.
The
They
point
want
is,
you
the
to
point
think
is to
everybody
say
did
to
it.
say we did it, okay? And I'll use my escape hatch. Everyone here's parents, ancestors were not here when these decisions were made. They were economic decisions. As far as the moral authority at the time, slavery was already falling out of, I don't want to use a term like fashion, but it was already falling as a very inefficient way to do it. But there were many people living in New England, in England, and the South, we call it the triangle trade. They had rum, sugar,
Molasses,
and yeah, exactly. And so you look at it, but question is, because a group of people did it then, okay, does that people are going from that to saying the whole history of the country is somehow poisoned?
But you can't be revisionist. The history is the history. Hopefully you learn from it,
Well, isn't that the point? Yeah.
Yeah.
but isn't that why we study
But
history?
we should stop having Thanksgiving because they killed Indians. So we
Yep.
shouldn't have Thanksgiving anymore. Because
And my-
that was wrong.
And my other thing.
So let's not
yeah.
have Thanksgiving
And the thing that I
And
began.
they don't celebrate Columbus
You
Day
can't-
anymore.
Oh,
you can't-
they
correct.
desecrate a statue in Detroit
You
of
can't pick
Columbus.
and choose
Columbus,
our
yeah.
historical figures, and
And
you
one in the
can't do
North
that
End.
because there's whether it's
nerve.
it's feminism, slavery, crimes against the American Indians. There are so many things in our history. You don't
This is-
just start picking
what
and
they
choosing
call this
and say we're
nihilism.
going to start
I
pulling
think it's
things
sort of a
out.
nihilistic.
But
yeah.
any way you
Look
look
at the
at
crimes
it,
against
I mean,
the Irish,
I was
the
at Holy
Italians, the
Cross.
Portuguese.
It was all male. The minute they opened it up and it became 50-50, the academic standing jumped.
Yeah.
Because you were able to pick the top 50% from each side.
Not
Okay, we
anymore.
learned.
But why doesn't that work in the reverse, where schools that accept women are accepting more men?
Well, don't they have to now? If you're an all-girls school, you got to accept guys just like an all-guys
And now,
school.
and now the Asian population is suing Harvard
Because they have an Asian quota.
because they have an Asian quota and they're being discriminated against because they're told they can't get in, and there are people that are that score half as much on the SAT
And Bobby,
test that are getting into Harvard.
I have to admit, it's above my pay grade to understand. I don't like discrimination, period, end of story. Any way you shake it, I want an even playing field. But then you turn around and you got all these sociology studies that say you really can't have an even playing field.
But you go back to the issue. It goes back to Sandra Day O'Connor's great thing with the University of Michigan. Affirmative action is not necessarily good, but there's going to be a day we don't need it anymore.
Right.
She couldn't argue from the fact in the admissions. She couldn't argue of the fact that it was a good idea. But let's go to another point. Maybe some of the emergence of the alt-right, if I hate to use the term, but again, emergence, is partly reaction to the Obama years, okay? Now, it's certainly a bad reaction to it, but you could see some of the things that Obama did and some of the things he didn't do inflamed a certain group of people who have grievances.
And
okay,
I could say
now,
all left is to deal with the victory of the conservatives.
exactly. Now we go back and
No,
look.
absolutely not. The alt-left was the result of the Obama administration.
You think so?
Where you use the State Department's full power, whether it be the Justice Department, whether it be the Department of Environmental
Well, the
Affairs,
IRS
all
going after
against
conservatives.
The IRS to go after your enemies.
Yeah.
Okay? Richard Nixon had an enemy list.
Right.
And got blasphemed for that.
And he should have. I mean,
But
Richard
Al,
Milhouse,
At
Richard
least he
Milhouse
used
did a
the
lot of good
power-
things.
He didn't use
But-
the power of the government to go after them.
Al, you notice the minute Trump came up, or the minute Bush came up, we go back to Watergate. A tiny incident in our history that aged liberals can never seem to get over. It's like this is the you know, the
It's the
thing
fault.
of
Won't we
world.
go back to Hillary-gate?
Well,
I mean, I'm sorry.
Hillary learned from the best, Nixon.
Well, but I mean, when I sit there and hear about
No,
the computer
Robert
scam,
Byrd was
he's
a
the only
mentor.
one that got caught.
The Grand
That's
Credo.
why we keep going.
No, here's the other question. That's
Grand
the
Credo,
point.
Robert Byrd
What do you
was
call
a
it?
mentor.
Point out
Yeah.
that the majority leader of the United States Senate was Robert Byrd from West Virginia, a Klan member.
Right.
Okay.
Active.
We have forgotten, again, in this spiel of all these Antifa and Black Lives Matter groups and other groups, we've forgotten to acknowledge that legacy of things. You know, it's like it's amazing.
And she got up and said, he was my mentor.
Yeah.
So now any predictions for the next election? Who do we have? I say
Oh,
we have
please. Yeah.
the Obama people picking Deval Patrick. I say we have the Clinton people picking Kamala Harris.
Oh, yeah.
And
How about the Republicans that don't like Trump? Who are they going to pick?
but shouldn't you be happy if they pick those people
Oh, yeah.
or your
Very
favorite,
happy.
Our own senator?
Bernie,
Yeah.
Shouldn't you be happy if they're running
please.
somebody far left?
I-
Just like the Democrats would be so tickled if you pick somebody far right.
As my buddy said to me, where should we send money to a committee to keep Liz Warren, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer as the face of the... And we'll throw in Maxine Waters.
Yeah.
We'll throw in crazy Maxine. We'll throw in Maxine.
Yeah.
We should keep them as the face of the Democratic Party.
See, to me,
Yeah.
those people make it so that I herd towards the center.
Yep.
No question.
Right? I mean, both the far right, the far left, whatever you want to call them. What I don't like is when you tie the Antifa to the mid-Democrats or when you tie the skinheads to the middle Republicans. Because I'm proud to be conservative.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that I can look at. You know when we say, is there a benefit to having a pot
Yeah, but
store?
the- but it's-
Is there a benefit to the skinheads?
Or
Only
to the
that
others.
we're giving them the rights of the First Amendment, and I get to ignore them.
But then we should ignore them by not. The best way to treat a demonstration is to turn your back on
Well,
it, not
Ed,
dwell on it.
Milford, except this last time when somebody actually stood up, has treated the skinheads in what I think is an appropriate way. They come in, they put their fecal matter
Yeah, but
down.
I don't know what
we
I don't
ignore
know
it.
what this is all about. What you're talking about? This? You mean their
The
newspapers?
Yeah. All of a sudden I get this thing, white supremacist rule.
Yeah, but anyone can. First of all, the fact that it was so crazy and whatever is dismissed.
Right,
But why
and I
dwell
ignore
on
it.
it?
And you
then
ignore
throw it
and
away.
they'll go away. That's
You-
what I'm saying. To me, the best way with these people, they come
Well-
in, you ignore what they do, they go away to somewhere else.
But unfortunately, there's a lot of communities in the United States where it's dangerous to ignore extremes of both sides.
Right.
So very dangerous. We're lucky. We live in a different environment here than people on the edge and people in communities. We take the inner cities of the United States right now with the murders and violence going on. I mean, we talked about what was it the mayor of Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah. How would you like to live in Chicago right
Yeah,
now?
he basically said, well, we welcome, it's a sanctuary city, we welcome illegals. What sane illegal would go to Chicago?
Are you kidding me?
I mean, because
That is one of the most.
Spencer apparently in the last couple days voted to become a sanctuary city, and they've erected a sign.
Spencer?
Spencer, Mass.
Senator Goby.
Senator
Yeah.
Goby, they erected a sign
again-
that says illegal
You have
immigrants
to
welcome.
opt into that.
I think, yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm driving down
I think the
Milford.
Heights should be a sanctuary neighborhood.
Yeah,
That's what we
right.
should do next. Okay, all right.
Yeah, the Portuguese would go out there with 2x4s. They take care of
You know,
sanctuary.
That's an armed demonstration.
Yes, up. Oh my, sound like a
See, now
violence
we gotta keep
here.
you 500 feet away from
I know.
No,
See,
but all kidding
Al,
aside,
Al,
Yeah.
I can't deal with this thing of we're going to protect criminals.
Al,
Wait a minute. They're criminals.
Al, you know how crazy it's become?
Yeah.
The Atlantic Monthly, okay, allowed this attorney whose name escapes me right now to write a 4,500 word article
Listen to this.
on, now brace yourself, okay, on why the solar eclipse yesterday was racist. Okay?
wait a
The
minute.
solar eclipse,
I
45
I did not hear this.
4,500 words
Makes
on
sense to
how
me.
the solar eclipse is racist because of the pattern,
The path that followed?
the path of perfect viewing, the way it cuts through America.
What was
It cuts through all the racist parts of America. It starts in Oregon, which of course is not racist.
Now,
but it starts-
is
it
Galileo and
starts in-
Copernicus a defendant
Wait a
in that
minute,
case,
wait a
or
minute.
what?
all white
all the way to
areas
South
of
Carolina.
Oregon, all
Did
the
he
way to
share
South
the
Carolina.
narcotics?
And
He
it's-
must
and
have
it's
been on to
only-
write
and
this?
it's only-
Probably got paid for this
and it's
lunacy.
only
He just left
in-
the pot shop.
It's only in the minority sections of South Carolina for a few minutes before it goes. Before it goes into the docks in Charlottesville, where the slaves were brought over.
Now, Bobby, I'm
and
going to be
actually
mean,
dropped
but
off.
you invested
I hope
good
you can read those
oxygen to read
4,500
this?
words.
Yeah, but it just shows you what's published in a reputable magazine.
This is what you need to read.
Yeah.
You need to read
No.
it.
Why don't
No,
you
I-
read it and tell me what it
to
says?
understand
That's right.
the madness that Ed Bertarelli is telling you.
Yeah.
When
You
say
say
to him,
you don't know
how
this or that. That's
how
the
can
point.
I'm sorry,
Antifa-
when somebody tells me the sun.
But the point is, did you even know this was
And the moon.
published?
No!
Yeah.
Okay, is the Atlantic magazine going to publish a thing? Climate change is a hoax. You bet your blippy it won't. This is the point: is we've reached a stage where it's got to the.
So the sun and the moon are in on it. Good point.
I mean, my
Absolutely.
God.
Both
They're
racist.
Uh-oh,
Yeah,
collusion.
absolutely.
We have a conspiracy
We knew it.
theory.
They're on the same field.
Guys, thanks. I knew this would be a fun ride.
Wow, we didn't even get to President Trump.
I
My
know.
goodness.
Can you imagine?
Wow.
I think we did.
Well, maybe.
I think we did.
4 more years.
God bless you. As always, thanks for joining to our 6 loyal viewers. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Hopefully you understand more about it than I do, because I still am confused.
He's in the
over
dark.
A lot of these issues that just seem, we're American. You have the right to a peaceful protest. You step over the line, you're a criminal in my mind. But as always, may God bless. May tomorrow be a safer night than tonight. Thank you for joining. Thanks for the entertainment.
Thanks, Al. Thanks for having us.
Vote no on eclipse.
Not too long since I've been